I want to thank everyone for coming today. With us is Sheriff Shelley, District Attorney Fitzpatrick, Under Sheriff Jeff Passanow, ADA Moran. Is that correct, sir?
It is, yes.
All right. Chief Fisher, Lieutenant Welsh, in charge of our detectives, and Detective Sergeant Bloodgood. I'm going to turn it over to Sheriff Shelley.
I want to thank everyone for coming today. Special thanks go to the detectives of the Sheriff's Office. The amount of investigative work this case took over the past week is just, it's impressive work, unbelievable amount of time. And believe it or not, I'd like to thank the press for having patience. We promise transparency, we are transparent, but there's a balance between giving information to the public and keeping the public safe. In this case, required that balance, and that's what took us so long to get to the point to give this press conference. Our involvement in this case starts last Tuesday, March 12th. Patrol is called to 124 West Conklin Ave, where victim Kevin Mills, he's 61 years old, was found dead and murdered on his kitchen floor. His stove was on, the house was quite warm, and his truck was stolen. Investigation continued through the night into Wednesday, March 13th. On Wednesday, March 13th, warrants were served on 2 houses on the Onondaga Nation. 3 people were taken into custody, and the victim's truck was recovered. The people taken into custody was a 17-year-old, 40-year-old Owanis Lazor, and 52-year-old Brent Farr. The investigation continued on from Wednesday until yesterday, March 18th. On March 18th, a 4th person was taken into custody, 28-year-old Isaiah Smith. Through the investigation, the following charges were charged. The 17-year-old was charged with murder second. Isaiah Smith, 28-year-old, was charged with murder second and robbery first. Isaiah lives at 120 Riverdale Road in Syracuse. 40-year-old Owanis Lazor was charged with possession of stolen property, 4th and 5th. And 52-year-old Brent Farr was just a witness to the stolen property. Anybody have any questions?
Can you spell the names of the suspects again? The 17-year-old, the 40-year-old, and the last.
So we have a 17-year-old, the 28-year-old is Isaiah Smith, I-S-I-A-H. Smith, common spelling. And the female, Owanis Lazor, it's A-W-A-N-N-A-I-S, L-A-Z-O-R-E. And Brent Farr is a witness. You want his name or?
Just in case, if you could.
Yep, it's B-R-E-N-T-F-A-R-R.
Sheriff, what is the relationship between the arrested parties and the victim?
I'm not sure about the 17-year-old and the victim knew each other. To what capacity, I think we're still investigating that, so we're not sure the exact full relationship.
So the stolen car was located the victim's stolen car was located on the Onondaga Nation at one of their homes?
Correct. When we served the warrants on last Wednesday, the warrants for 2 houses, looking for the people and the truck.
And what led to those warrants? Were people calling in? We know that there was some dispatch chatter of a neighbor saying that they had tried to check in with the victim for a couple of days and went over there, found his truck missing.
Yeah, so exceptional detective work led to those warrants. Whether it's knocking on doors, whether it's finding the surveillance cameras that might give us the information we need.
Were any special protocols required to serve warrants on the Onondaga Nation?
Yeah, so special thanks to the Onondaga Nation for giving us full cooperation in this case. It wouldn't have been successful the way it is without their cooperation.
What kind of, what led you to believe it was a homicide and not some sort of natural death?
Jesse?
Obviously the investigation disclosed facts that led me to believe that it was not a natural death, and the condition of the
And Sheriff, you mentioned the stove being on and the temperature in the residence. Was that notable at all?
The temperature?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. We think this incident occurred sometime after 8 p.m. on Sunday, and we weren't there till 2, in the afternoon on Tuesday. So what the intent was of having the stove on, whether they're trying to burn the house down or what they were up to, we're not 100% sure. I mean, this is still an active investigation with some loose ends we got to tighten up.
Do you believe there could be more suspects out there?
I'm not aware of any more that we're looking for, but if one pops up, I'll call you.
And back to the stove question, though. So if he was found on the floor dead and the stove was on, the house was hot, did you kind of run through a possibility that whoever possibly did this was trying to make it look like a suicide attempt or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying I would ever commit a crime, but if I was going to burn a house down, I wouldn't turn the stove on with the burners. So that's why, it's some work to figure out what was the motivation for having that stove on.
So 2 people are charged with murder in the second
Correct.
right now?
Yep, the
Okay.
17-year-old and the 28-year-old.
I had heard indications that there might be some sort of sexual relationship between some of the people involved. Could you speak to that at all?
Yeah, those dots, if they're there to connect, haven't been connected yet. We're still working that.
Were any of them members of the Onondaga Nation?
I believe they were, weren't they?
They had familial ties to the nation,
Including the victim or not the victim?
not that I'm aware of.
We did find who we thought was the victim on Facebook posting a video recently talking about their neighbors it looked like across the street complaining about running a junkyard or something like that. I don't know if it's the right Facebook, but was this something retaliatory possibly against the victim?
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that or the junkyard. I mean, West Conklin Ave, if you're familiar with that area, Nedrow, one side of the street is Onondaga Nation and the other side is town of Onondaga.
Can you speak to any early indication as to a motive, what connected these people? Right now, you're basically talking about arrests and the man who died. What brought
Yeah,
all these
the
people?
motive appears to be a robbery. They stole the victim's truck, so it appears to be a robbery. And that's why the one gentleman's charged with robbery, and I'm sure the district attorney will look at charges on the 17-year-old for robbery.
Speaking of the district attorney, you're obviously here for a reason. Is there anything that you'd like to add or help answer?
Well,
any
the
questions?
first thing I'd like to say is echo what the sheriff said and congratulate the sheriff's department on a phenomenal investigatory piece of work here. This was not an easy case to put together, and they worked tirelessly on it, and I appreciate that. They've given Chief ADA Moran a good product to put in front of the grand jury. Just to piggyback on what the sheriff just said, the first individual was charged with murder based on information we gleaned from the second individual. We believe that the grand jury will be hearing evidence regarding both intentional murder and felony murder, the underlying felony being robbery.
Sheriff, changing topics. Last night, the union, the Benevolent Association for Deputy Sheriffs, talked about an injured jail deputy. Can you speak to what might have happened and what you're reviewing?
It's interesting that the union in the jail, DSPA, is talking about something I wasn't aware of until that was brought to my attention. So we are investigating that. It's been under investigation since it occurred by one of our detectives. But something like that normally doesn't reach the level of the sheriff. It's handled at a lower level. But now it's brought to my attention. You can bet your bottom dollar on looking into it.
We don't often hear of these kinds of things from the union. Can you speak to the kind of the unique way this information is being shared?
I can't, because I've never, to my knowledge, something like that hasn't occurred. There's very strict policies on when you can talk to the press.
Are there any other details you can share on that with what you know about this right now?
I would believe Andrew Donovan knows more than I do about it. It's a, correct me if I'm wrong, it was just brought to my attention, it's a fake Facebook post of something that happened the 12th of March. Tell me if I'm wrong on this.
I just refer you to the press release that I have in my possession.
I think it occurred in booking, some type of struggle with an inmate, some deputies. Like I said, this, to my knowledge, has never been put out to the press like this.
Going back to the Nedrow homicide, though, what is left, I guess, in your ongoing investigation right
I'll
now?
let, Lieutenant Wells speak to that.
If you could
Can you
come to the
step
mic,
up there?
That'd be great.
So we'll be working collaboratively with Chief ADA Moran here to make sure that he has everything he needs to prosecute the case.
Is there more evidence or information you're looking for from people, or
Yes.
can you specify?
I cannot. Sorry.
Can you speak to the possible relationship between the parties?
I cannot.
Is that because you aren't aware of one? Is that because you know more than you'd like to?
It's part of the ongoing investigation. Ultimately, that would be part of a standard invest is to determine relationship and motive.
And the victim lived on the town of Onondaga side
Correct.
of that road.
Correct.
Okay.
Do we have any more questions for the sheriff or the DA? Tamia?
It was originally called in as a fume investigation, I believe. I was just trying to figure out if it was due to he was there for a very long time. Was it him that was possibly doing an odor investigation, or was it coming from the stove?
I'm not familiar with any of that. I mean, the first shooting I went to was dispatched as a difficulty breathing. And I showed up and the gentleman was shot through the chest. So the way calls can be dispatched and what you find when you get there obviously can be very, very different.
Can you speak to the time elapsed between the initial arrests and yesterday's arrest?
Why there's a time difference? Well, we were able to find 3 people Wednesday and it took until yesterday to find a 4th person.
Was that person hiding? I mean, clearly they didn't turn themselves in, so.
It was a challenge because our 3 people we had in custody, their description, they didn't know actual names, they didn't know addresses, you know, they're going by nicknames. It's just, it's a lot of work to actually locate people.
I have a question for Fitzpatrick that's off topic. Just wanted to get your thoughts on.
Before we go off topic, I don't want the sheriff to have to wait here while I know comment you guys about something else.
Was the initial call that came in regarding to a body, or at least a body being found, or a missing person?
How was the call dispatched? Is a unconscious person or, I'm not sure.
I'm not sure.
Did you know, John?
It might have been a status check.
So we're thinking potentially a status check. I can get the exact answer.
Okay.
And we can contact 911. We can run it up on our computer. If it's real important to you, we can get that for you.
It was a status check, and I think while they were en route, it kind of developed a little more into somebody who had been injured.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you.
District Attorney, I guess the podium's yours, sir.
Thanks. Yes, off topic.
I just wanted to get your thoughts on the release of Shirley Winters.
Well, unfortunately, well, let me backtrack. Ron Ryan, who has been pursuing her for decades, brought her to my attention a number of years ago, and just by absolute happenstance, I was reading the Post-Standard one day, and ignoring their latest editorial against me, I went to the news section, and there was a story about a child that drowned.